your girl Charlotte V. Manor, aka Aquarius, and today I'm on here to review my girl Princella Carr's book, The 5 Components of Love. Before I even get started, go subscribe to Princella's channel. I love her. Finding her changed my life. Yada yada yada. Amazing woman. Also, this is her on the back right here. I think this is a nice photo. Princella Carr is what she calls a street philosopher. She is a former officer of the United States Army, business observer, and life coach who has taken an analytical approach in tackling many of the world's most complex ideals and simplifying them into terms that are much more digestible for the average person to apply to their lives. I'm gonna stop there. She's like a jack of all trades, and she's really good at understanding the psychology of men. So I would definitely say subscribe to her. Tell her I sent you. But yeah, going to the 5 components of love, discover the true meaning of love. So again, title, author out the way. So why am I reading this? Because I've always felt like love is never defined correctly. People claim to love a lot of things, and then they cheat on them, they abuse them, they abandon them, and they still call it love, and they blame circumstances. But how much do you love if those circumstances were able to make you abandon, cheat on, abuse someone that you claim to love? So what I like about Priscilla is that she gets real deep into the components of love, and I've been on a journey to find out what love is, because I know what love is not. I grew up in poverty to a single mom and a deadbeat dad who was constantly in and out of jail. That is not love. I do not feel like either of them truly loved me, at least not in the way that I understood, because my life was about them, and they made choices mostly thinking about themselves and then gaslighting and saying that they made those choices for me. So that's kind of what led me into finding the 5 components of love, because I just feel like most people are not capable of love, and the ones who are capable of love do not seem able to realize it in other people, because people that I would think are capable of love are loving people who don't love them, which is like, you don't know what love is, because what is going on? So I just had to go buy this book when I found her and she recommended it. And yeah, so the book starts off with Princella talking about her childhood, and it's interesting because we had similar childhoods but different at the same time. It's like the feeling was the same, but how those feelings were brought up inside of us were different. So she goes into how her mom was the black sheep, her abused mom was the black sheep, and her mom had gone through so many things, from being ostracized by her family, scapegoated. I feel like at one point she was sexually assaulted by like one of her sisters or cousin's husband, and because she's a black sheep, no one cared or believed her. Princella's childhood was filled with a lot of beatings and verbal abuse. I felt that, like, my childhood was pretty similar, and abused mom turning into the abuser, right down to the T, my childhood. Yeah, and so I related to it so much that I actually cried, and I had to like take a break from the book. And I'm not trying to get emotional now, because I remember what Priscilla went through, and it was like watching reading about my own childhood over again. So it's amazing that she goes off to join the military and do all these cool things, and ultimately end up doing like her life's true mission. And like, let me stop being a fan right now and get to the review, because I can just like praise her all day. So the first component of love, according to Princella, is seek first understanding. A person cannot love you if they do not understand you. And I felt that. And I feel that. And so let's see what she actually writes. Lack of understanding fuels apathy. You don't care. Care means to feel concern or interest and to attach importance to something. So already I agree with the first component of love, because for someone to love you, they have to want to understand you, and to want to understand you, they have to have some sort of care for you, or like at least enough care to communicate with you to understand you. And I like how she says lack of understanding fuels apathy, which I think is true. I feel like a lot of narcissists are apathetic about people they claim to love. And yeah, a lot of abusers will say they love you and they don't know shit about you. Okay, it's my own mother. Okay, and it is what it is. But yes, the first component of love, seek to understand. And the second component of love is compassion. Where is your compassion? Because understanding comes first, and once you understand, you can feel compassion, which is a key emotional ingredient to love. So I do agree with Princella on that. She also talks about how there can be no sympathy for someone's circumstances if you don't understand them. Compassion is a critical component to love because it drives action. And again, I agree with that, because to understand someone and then to hear them, you will most likely feel compassion for them if they're not coming from, you know, like a delusional place. And she talks about how people with no empathy can murder ruthlessly, like innocent people. So most people will fall somewhere in between, which I agree with. Most people aren't like ruthless killers, but most people aren't like Mother Teresa either, trying to, or let me use a better example, because I feel like Mother Teresa was exposed recently. So most people aren't like an angel here to just be benevolent and help you without thinking of getting something in return. So I could definitely agree with that. She also says compassion fuels action, and intention means nothing, only tangible results and outcomes. And I also agree with that. Your intentions may not have been to hurt someone that you love, but to me, I think it's really just the outcome that matters. Like if you go to a bachelor party and your intent wasn't to cheat and you cheated, who cares if that wasn't your intention? The intention is that you betrayed the person that you claim to love, and it's really up to them how to feel about it. And yes, and if you love them, you will seek to understand why that was a problem. But again, if you love them in the first place, you probably would have tried to understand them before you went and ruined everything. So I definitely agree with Princella on that. So seek to understand. And once you understand, compassion will most likely bloom. Once you have the compassion that blooms, then you'll be able to be fueled by the actions. And yes. So next point is sacrifice. So the third component of love is sacrifice, and action requires it. So Princella, for this component, uses the story of a woman who adopted a child. Turns out this child was actually kidnapped and not supposed to be in this adoption agency, and she'll go really into that in the book. So with the woman's knowledge who adopted the child and always wanted a child, like her dream, when she gets the knowledge that this kid was not supposed to be adopted, she actually has a family that's waiting for her back at home, that is praying for her return. This lady's faced with a difficult decision. So what she wants, she loves this child. What she wants is to keep the child. She could give it a better life in America. But she seeks to understand this child despite how she feels. And by seeking to understand this child, she realizes that the child may think she's nice, the child may think she has more than her old family, but the child really misses her real mom. She wants to go back and be with her real family. And this woman shows tremendous maturity and love, because despite what she wants, she hears the child, she feels compassion for the child, and that compassion fuels her action to help that child get back to her real family. And yes, she went into her resources to do so, despite her not in the beginning wanting, you know, it's just, it was a good story because that was real love. Because she had already bonded with the child. The child even, you know, I like you, but I miss my family. So even the child's in a state of confusion where it's like, I want to be with my real family, but this lady's nice too. So I think it took real love to say, I'm gonna let you go, and I'm gonna help let you go. Like, I'm gonna invest in helping you find your real family and then let you go. So I think that is true love right there. Okay, not cheating, abusing, not, you know what I mean, abandoning. No, this right here, setting someone free because you know you are not what they need. That is real love right there. like that's true love. So anyway, yeah, Princella highlights how she sets aside her feelings, listens, okay, with the renewed compassion, helps the girl find her family. So yeah, it wasn't a lot of possession, okay, because a lot of times possession is confused for love. And yeah, if you truly love something, you'll set it free. If it comes back, it's yours. If not, it was never meant to be. And that's a quote that Princella really agrees with, and I do too. Like, I think that is true love. Yeah, instead of like emotionally destroying someone you claim to love, just let them go. You know what I mean? And if you find your way back to them and they find their way back to you, in essence, that is the highest frequency of love right there. And also, when a person loves you, they consider you important enough and worthy enough to sacrifice their wants for, and maybe even their well-being, because we know there are some times where, like, maybe someone needs a kidney, your kid needs a kidney, and that's a sacrifice to you if you give them that kidney. So yeah, I do agree with the third component, sacrifice. We sacrifice, and as Princella says, we sacrifice to ensure that something survives. So if you love something, you want to ensure its survival, even if it's not with you, okay? So that's why I'm always hammering, cheating isn't love, abuse isn't love, abandoning isn't love, no matter the circumstances. Like, unless you died, if you love something, there is something that could have been done. Like, sacrifice is needed. Like, when fathers walk away, like, your mama was crazy. Well, did you go try to get custody? Like, did you hire the private investigator to catch her doing drugs so that you can get custody? No. No, I just went off and started a whole new life and got a new woman. So it's like, so not ensuring the survival of your offspring. Got it, not love, okay? So on to the fourth component of love, ensuring the survival of, and I talked about that a little bit, but Priscilla talks about how a lot of ignorance leads to suffering and conditions that people would rather avoid. I can look at the book, but I think that was when she used the example of the homeless man, like homeless people, and how sometimes it's hard for her to empathize with them, because she can tell when, like, someone's like trying and when they're not. And I get that, because I know homeless people, and so I noticed that, like, people who were homeless and they're not anymore, they tend to see it differently, because they're like, yeah, everyone just feels bad, but you have to, like, get more information. And Priscilla talks about that, because again, she says when she was homeless, it was a lot of things that she didn't do that other homeless people will do, and then use it as justification for, like, why they can't rise up and, like, get back on their feet. So I definitely would say read the book for more context on that. But she also talks about what separates man from beast. What separates humans from animals is that we have reasoning. And I agree with that, because a lot of people like to relate themselves to animals, and it's like animals do a lot of things that you don't want to do. So for that one, she says how, for instance, very few men and women get to know each other before they become romantically or sexually involved. They have children with mates they are practically strangers. Couples don't know anything about each other's childhood, past relationship, philosophies on the environment. When you enter a union blind to how someone's background make up their personality, you leave too much up to chance. And I agree with that. Humans can reason, humans can ask questions, humans can look at past behavior and predict if it will have bearings on the future. So I agree with that. And to ensure the survival of something, you wouldn't want to go into something completely blind. So I get that. You have so many people starting families and they don't know anything about each other. So I agree with that. Princella writes how religion teaches people not to judge a person based on his or her actions. And I think this is bad. And Princella thinks this is bad, okay? In theory and in practice. And I always hated that about religion too. I know forgiveness is big, not judging people for their sins, but it's like if someone has a history of hurting children, there's a huge possibility in the future they will hurt children. They can find Christ and have a come to Jesus moment, but still keep your children away from them, okay? You're not entitled to things that you lost from past behavior. So I agree with that. I really hope that religion, as we move forward, kind of tweaks that, okay? I really hope they do. That's really all I have to say about that. Like, always judge people by their actions, like straight up. If someone like slaps an old lady, they're a terrible person. Who cares if they repent in a few years? Like, still watch your grandma around them. Like, common sense people. Okay, anyway, Priscilla challenges everyone to analyze, observe, and judge people in a way so they can come to conclusions that help them. And so to make sound judgments and to dole out justice, we need to be able to observe and analyze things. And a lot of religion teaches you not to judge and analyze. So it's like, how can I call out the predator in the room if I can't judge him, like, or her? Like, how can I say, hey, you can't do that without judging them? It's impossible. So I definitely agree with Princella on that point. Like, we have to judge to know what's right and wrong. We have to condemn so that we can differentiate the two. Like, if you can't point out the sexual abuser in the room because it's judgmental, how can you protect other people from them? So I definitely get that. And her last point is that all love is the same, which is just very consistent. So I'm also going to go to that page because I think she had a good quote on that page. 140. So all love is the same, very consistent. The only difference is the intimate expression of the love. Intimacy, or being closely acquainted, familiar, or close, can be expressed by taking your mother out to her favorite restaurant, or spending a romantic evening with your spouse, or taking your pet for a walk because they look forward to it. If you love your mother, your spouse, your children, or your pet, you will actively listen to them to learn about their character. You will have compassion for their suffering and appreciate them. And I agree with this 100%. How many people claim to love people they have no compassion for? And I know I use men a lot because I've witnessed, like, men in my life really claim to love women they dog the fuck out, like, straight up. Like, I've seen, and it's like, once you dog them out, they don't even try to understand the woman they dogged out. They're just like, yo, you tripping. Like, so that's why I'm like, yeah, that's why I say if someone really loves you, they should be able to empathize with you when you're suffering. A lot of people can't. Like, if someone cheats on you and they don't empathize with why you're hurt and how they need to do better and never do it again, like, do they love you? No. If you abandon your child and they go through a lot of stuff and you can't see why they have a hard time not hating you, especially when you don't do anything to rectify that, like, that's not love. Like, you can't love something you've abandoned, abused, like, cheated on. So again, I'm hammering these points home with Priscilla, okay? And again, if you truly love someone, you can empathize with their suffering, okay? Like, I like with race, like, if you truly empathize with Black people, you empathize with their suffering. You're aware that you may not be directly harming them, but people like you may be harming them, things like that, okay? And the last component of love is willing to die for, the ultimate sacrifice. And she uses the movie with Denzel Washington, I think John Q, and that's when he has to save his son from dying. I think his son, yeah, needed a heart transplant, and they were moving too slow, and he was willing to hold up the hospital and force them to like take his heart and give it to the son. But yeah, you have to watch the movie to see the end. But she uses that, and then towards the end of the book, she talks about self-love, how society is filled with men and women who insist on beating themselves up as some sort of penance for making a few mistakes in life. And I kind of feel like a little bit is contradictory, but at the same time it's not, because I get it. Like, you're not giving them a pass, but it's like, okay, if you're not like a murderer, a child harmer, a sexual abuser, some things can be forgiven, but some people just take it too hard. They're like, I'm terrible, just let me die miserable. So she talks about how people with that mindset can affect their children. A lot of parents are stubborn. They double down, where it's just like, okay, I failed you. Why even bother? Like, it's too much work. That's not love. That's not self-love, and that's not love to the person who, I'll use myself for example. My father uses that as a cop-out all the time. Like, it's just too much work. You'll never forget. None of your siblings will forgive me. You won't forgive me. It's a waste of time. I'm just gonna like help some homeless children over there, and it's just like, you're not even trying. So I do get that. Like, a lot of times people use their past sins as a cop-out. Moms do that too, where it's like, I was here, weren't I? I may have been like abusive, but like, I didn't abandon you. So they're not seeking to understand why you still may have a problem with them, even though they stuck around to raise you or something like that. And yeah, that was the 5 components of love. She talks about possession, not confusing love with possession. Possession is just like a personality trait. So it's not love, it's just a personality trait. And then you have forgiveness, forgiving yourself and others. Many children grow up traumatized from being treated as property by their parents. Forgiving, yourself for not being able to stand up to your parents. Forgiving your parents for dropping the ball. Things like that. And yeah, so that was the 5 components of love. I really enjoyed it. There was one part though that I feel like is probably never going to be possible. She talks about a case that happened where someone was murdered. The son was murdered and he was going to jail, and the son who was murdered, the mom was like, I forgive you. Like, I wish you didn't have to go to jail, because it keeps the cycle going. And she talks about if like everyone could get to that point, the world would be a better place. I don't know if it's possible. I personally wouldn't fall into that either. So that's why I'm like, okay, like, take what works and then like leave the rest. But I agree with like 99% of this book. I do think the ending is like, that's some enlightenment right there. Most of us ain't gonna make that, but if you can at least do the 5 components of love, I think you will be good. I'm like, avenge me. After that, I'm taking avenge me. But I agree, that doesn't promote like a loving society. But I do get it. That mom, that was like an incarnated like angel or something. Most of us aren't gonna be like that. So I would just say follow the 5 components of love, and yeah, practicing forgiving yourself and others, at the very least, just so you can move on and love yourself. And yeah, again, I am your girl Charlotte V Manor, aka Aquarius, and I will see you for the next book review. Again, get this book and peace out.